There's no doubt that Adygea's nature is its greatest asset. The mountains and canyons are some of the most beautiful in the Caucasus, assuming you can actually see them, of course.
Well, this gives you an idea of just how changeable the weather can be up here in the mountains. For most of the days it's been green, sunny and lovely, and now it's like we're plunged back into the middle of winter. Glad I packed my waterproofs.
And within hours, everything had turned stark white.
Well, if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't believe this amount of snow could fall in such a short period of time. But it's not going to stop us, because even though we are outdoors, there is a rather beautiful indoor attraction that we can still visit.
And that meant heading almost 40 meters down under the earth.
It's not exactly dry, but wow, isn't this incredible? It's the Big Adygea cave, translated from the Russian, and it's the largest open limestone cave in the area.
This is one of the most spectacular caves in Europe because of its wealth of stalactites and stalagmites, and it's one of the area's most popular tourist spots.
Take a look at these stalactites here. Apparently it takes 100 years for them to grow just 1 centimetre. So you can imagine the thousands of years it's taken for it to get to that length. Incredible.
There's a lot of ups and downs to this cave if you want to see it in its full glory. But if you do get tired, there's a natural pick-me-up you can try.
Adygea is a land of legend, and this cave has its fair share. Now, these two pillars supposedly have a positive and a negative charge, and if you touch them simultaneously, it's supposed to fill you with energy. Much better.
By the following morning, it was like our little winter interlude had never happened. And down by the water's edge, there are some fascinating discoveries to be made.
This is the White River, and it's a real archaeological treasure for the Adygea Republic because it's littered with beautifully preserved examples of ammonite fossils, all of which date back more than 100 million years. And hopefully, this should be a great example right over here. Здравствуйте. Yeah. Oh, садись. Очень приятно. Наш эксперт аммонитов.
Nubri Lovpash has been studying Adygea's fossils for more than 25 years and has helped move the best examples to the Republic's Stone Park Museum.
You can have a look here at kind of a cross-section of the ammonite itself and the actual former remains of the animal here and all these layers that have built up over the millions and millions of years to create this vast fossil.
The park boasts some of the largest and best preserved ammonites in the world, and Nubri has his own ideas about what they all look like.
A Mongolian sitting on his horse here, right? This one is supposed to resemble a Roman. It's a bit more kind of Russian grandma than Julius Caesar, but, you know, all a case of perception.
And the king of the jungle is well represented too.
There's animal fossils here, right? A family of lions here with the male at the top, children and a lioness here at the front. We've got a whole pride, another lion here. There's a lion about to spring. Slightly resembling Kenny from South Park, maybe.
They may be open to some artistic interpretation, but it's impossible to forget that these huge natural sculptures are so ancient they were formed when this whole area was still covered by ocean, and the locals believe they have mystical properties.
So here they've taken inspiration for some old Adygea legends, and apparently if you climb up to the highest point in the Stone Museum, and if we shout a particular word It will get rid of all our negative energy and vibrations. So, Norim, what do we need to shout?
Tar orupsau.
Ta orupsau, да? Okay. Раз, два, три. Tar orupsau!
And it's not just spiritual refreshment that's on offer in this republic. You just need to take a trip up into the mountains to find it.
Believe it or not, these are tea bushes. And no, we haven't just hopped on a plane to China, we are still very much in Adygea. And this is the most northerly tea plantation in the world.
And according to head botanist Boris Korozun, the tea plant is much more robust than you might think.
This region is one of the best places for growing tea, because when temperatures here drop below zero, it's normally accompanied by snow. Our plants can withstand temperatures as low as 30 degrees below zero, or about -22 Fahrenheit.
Although the cold weather does leave its mark.
Sometimes we find damaged leaves, like this one. This happens because of the cold.
This is a seriously gourmet product that sells for up to $10 per 100 grams. And everyone here is trained to make the most of it.
So this pruning is a very important process because it allows the shoots to grow back even higher, so when it does come to summer and picking time, you get a much higher yield. So we need to give them a good trim.
Although you have to make sure you're cutting in the right places.
I think that's just an instruction to give it more welly, James, okay?
Each bush takes around 5 years to reach maturity, and when its leaves are harvested, every ton yields around 250 kilograms of precious black tea.
Right, well, it certainly seems that this is a pretty exclusive tea, but apparently, if it's going to be really special, I need to go and find one more ingredient.
And nothing goes with it better than another locally sourced product.
Right, this is definitely the right place. Just be a little bit careful.
Apiaries are commonplace in this part of Adygea, and Nikolai has one of the most successful. Apparently, it's rare for the bees to attack you here, but it doesn't hurt to take precautions.
I'll stick this on. It's quite ominous sound. Now, that is a little frightening, but...
With the tasty wildflowers of the mountains to feed on, a good hive can produce up to 100 kilos of honey in a season, and it was time to smoke out the bees.
Well, this supposedly makes the bees think that the hive might need to be abandoned, so they start eating, and it calms them down. So hopefully, no stings.
And with its 3,000 residents feeding away, I was free to grab a slice.
Okay, I'm going to try and avoid the bee sticking its tongue in the comb next to me. So, the moment of truth. Let's get this off. That is beautiful. I've never had honey straight from a hive before. And that is not massively overly sweet, but it's just delicious.
And with my side dish secured, I was finally ready for a brew.
Okay, now I am ready for a tea party. So my Adygea tea has been brewing here. So pour myself some of that. And just a little chunk of this beautiful honey. Now that is a proper posh cuppa.
Tea making is a relatively modern addition to Adygean culture, but back in my COP, I had a chance to take a look at one of the Republic's most ancient arts.
The Adygea have always been a warrior people, and in olden times their weapons would never have been far from their hands. In fact, a man's most precious possessions were considered to be his horse, his gun, his sword, and his daggers. And the more beautiful they were, the more prestige he had.
And even though the battles may be long gone, there's still a demand for these antique items of war. Murat is one of only a handful of weaponsmiths still working in Adygea, and he offered to show me where he creates his pieces. Most of the time he's restoring old weapons to their former glory, and it's a long and fiery process. If I remember my chemistry correctly, it's the end of the blue flame that's supposed to be the hottest bit, so I'm trying to get that on the silver. But the melting point? Nah, can't remember that. Once the silver is molten, it's poured into a mould and left to harden. Hold that very strongly. So we have our little lump of silver here that should be, hopefully, used to decorate our scabbard once I've cooled it down. A complete dagger needs months of effort, so we were going to concentrate on one tiny piece. But even that takes some very delicate handiwork. Still some more room with this wire to thin out, if I give it a good tug. And now that we had our wire, we needed something to attach it to.
Okay.
I think that is done. All right. Each of Murat's ornaments is an original design, and once the pattern is in place, it's welded together. So there's our little decorative ball for our dagger, and that's taken already about 10 hours of work to get it to this stage. So look at this, and that's 3 months. Definitely a labour of love. But there's only one place where a dagger like this really fits, and that's on a proper Caucasian costume. And I knew just where to find one.
Now, one thing I've learnt in my travels is how important music, dance and tradition is to the people of the Caucasus. And by the sounds of things, Adygea is no exception. And here are some spectacularly dressed gentlemen.
These talented musicians are members of Adygea's state dance company, Nalms, and they're preparing for a seasonal concert. Their drums are Adygea's national instrument, although pronouncing their name correctly is a bit of a tongue twister.
That is a sound that does not come easily to an English voice.
Apparently it takes years to master this technique, and I had around half an hour to catch up.
Looks easy, да?
Да, я думаю, нет.
This is it's tricky. It's trudno.
I decided that if I played quietly, I might just get away with it, especially with the spectacular show going on in front of me.
So the mountains, music, and one heck of a performance. Now that's what the Adygean spirit is all about.
For one of Russia's smallest republics, Adygea leaves a big impression. This is a place that shows off the best of the Russian Caucasus, a fascinating culture, breathtaking, and a genuine warm hospitality for those lucky enough to visit.